We might all have watched The Amazing World of Gumball as an ordinary, absurd, and fun cartoon. But what if I told you that behind those scenes we laughed at as kids, an existential crisis was actually being crafted step by step? Let me warn you from the start. This is just a theory video, meaning we can neither say it is definitely true nor definitely false. Now, look closely at the streets of Elmore. Why does everyone living in this town look like they popped out of completely different worlds? Why do a cassette tape, a cactus, a two-dimensional cat, and a three-dimensional dinosaur live in the same neighborhood and breathe the same air? Is this just an animation style choice, or is it a massive mismatch hiding right in front of our eyes? The residents of Elmore think they are living an ordinary life, but when you start wandering around the edges of the town, we begin to feel that there is a very serious strangeness in the fabric of this universe. Today, we will tear down all the cheerful pixels behind the Gumball universe and break down piece by piece the two strongest dark theories shaking the internet. Our first stop, that system about to collapse. The first theory is that Elmore is actually an artificial simulation. If there is artificiality in a world, system errors will definitely manifest there. Remember the episode, The Signals of the Series? While Gumball and Darwin are living an ordinary day, suddenly the whole world starts to freeze, their voices become robotic, and the objects around them begin to break down into pixels. Why would cartoon characters glitch or get television signal errors out of nowhere? This is a system malfunction too direct to be a cartoon joke. Are the characters not flesh and blood creatures but instead artificial intelligences trapped in a loop inside a cyber world whose boundaries are drawn with strict rules? So, what happens to the things that are no longer wanted, faulty, or forgotten in this universe? Here is the biggest proof of this theory, the void dimension. The series showed us this place very clearly. A bottomless hole that swallows everything that causes logic errors in the universe or no longer has a function. Remember Molly being completely erased from the show for a while and flying out of everyone's memory in town? When Gumball and Darwin went down into the void to rescue her, what did they find there? Cancelled old world designs, forgotten items, and faulty codes. The void is nothing but the recycle bin of the Elmore universe. Pay attention to the movements of the side characters in Elmore. Most of the time they walk in an endless loop on the same street with the same reactions, just like programmed NPCs in a computer game. But there is a single exception within this balanced system, Richard Watterson. Remember what happened in the episode The Job, when Richard got a job for the first time in his life and started working as a courier. The moment Richard started working, the whole town fell apart. Objects changed shape and the world turned into an apocalyptic area. Because Richard's core function was built on laziness. When the character tried to step out of his own code and be productive, the Elmore universe could not handle this logic error and the system crashed. Let's come to Rob, perhaps the most tragic character of the series, and that famous final episode of this simulation that was left unfinished and wrapped up halfway. While Rob was initially an ordinary side character in Elmore, the system deemed him unnecessary and booted him into the void. When he escaped from there, his body turned into a completely pixelated, broken design. Because his data had been corrupted. In the finale, while Rob was trying to gather everyone at school and transport them to another dimension, that painting drawn by Banana Barbara came true. The floor of Elmore High suddenly collapsed with a loud noise, and from underneath it emerged that bottomless darkness, the void dimension. As Rob was falling toward the darkness, the screen suddenly went black, and the show ended. This ending was the clearest indicator that the Elmore simulation had completely crashed and the system was permanently shut down. Of course, the show started again later, but we shouldn't dig that deep. After all, this is a theory. Let's come to the second theory about the show. which is perhaps much sadder than the cyber theories, the Elmore in the mind theory. According to this theory, that chaotic, colorful, and illogical world we see in Elmore is not actually a real place. These characters, each made of different materials, consist of nothing but toys in the room of a lonely child isolated from the outside world. Sounds like a very dramatic fan fiction, right? But the show itself showed us the real-world states of these toys in episodes like The Puppets and The Inquisition. Gumball is actually an old plush cat sitting in the attic, Darwin is a plastic ornamental fish, and Penny is a toy made of a peanut shell that a child made with their own hands. When you look at it from this perspective, those big illogicalities in the universe suddenly make sense. In fact, this is a cartoon series. Of course there will be absurdities, but it feels like Gumball's absurdities were different from other cartoon series. Or maybe it just seems that way to me. Why do characters come to the brink of dying in every episode and return perfectly fine in the next episode as if nothing happened? Because in a child's imagination, toys never die permanently. The game ends, the toys go into the box, and the next day, the story restarts from scratch. This is also why the Watterson family's house is constantly falling apart and shattering, then returning to its old state in a single scene. In real life, a house doesn't blow up just because a shipping package was opened, but in a child's room, when a box tips over, it could mean apocalypse has broken out in that neighborhood. Is the character's constant embarking on absurd adventures actually a massive defense mechanism built by that child sitting alone in their room to forget their loneliness? So where does the finale of this sad theory connect? Again to that dark finale where the school floor collapses. When we look through the window of the second theory, the tearing of Elmore High's floor and everything being drawn into that dark void is actually the picture of that child now growing up. The child is growing up, leaving behind their childhood toys and that naive imaginary world. The toys are thrown into an old box, into the darkness of the attic. That's why the floor collapses in the finale and the characters fall into that sea of oblivion they call the void. No matter how cheerful and funny Gumball looked on screen, it always contained details whispering that an end was approaching behind it. Whether it was a computer pulling the plug on the system or a grown-up child putting their toys away in a box. Was the city of Elmore consisting of just these? As I said at the beginning of the video, these were a theory, neither definite truth nor definite lie. It could be nonsense information made up by fans, or it could be something really thought out and spread by the creators. Yes, friends, we have come to the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it. It seems there is interest in theory videos on my channel. If you liked this video too, you can specify in the comments what our next theory video should be. Goodbye until we meet in the next video.